All right, we're going to talk about the new Form 4473 that the ATF requires when you purchase any firearm. Now, I know I told a lot of you I'm not going to use YouTube anymore, but unfortunately, this is kind of important. So I'm going against what I said, and I'm making a video for YouTube to discuss this situation. Now, I've actually filled a new form out, and I have copies up here to explain to you how I had to do that and what changed for me. Now, a lot of channels out here on YouTube, you know, they have a ton of subscribers, come out and say, well, you know, you got this, you got that, and they show you the form and they show you what has changed and try to explain it. But I actually went to my FFL dealer, who he's pretty good. He's this older fella, has a small shop. And he just got audited by the ATF a month ago or so, and they went through his records. It's a small business he runs out of his home. But he is a stickler for being informed and keeping up with the regulations. And actually the ATF agent told him that he should give a class on record keeping, because out of all the audits he did, there was absolutely nothing wrong, and it was all easy, readily available for him, and he went through all his records with no problems whatsoever. So this individual, even though he's not a giant business, he does know the paperwork, the ins and outs, and the record keeping on this. So I asked him about this form. And when I made the first video, he got all the information, because he's retired, and he went through it all, downloaded the form. And recently, I went down to pick up a firearm that I ordered and had sent to him, and he goes, since you asked, you're going to be the first person that uses a new form. Okay? And me and him sat there and filled the form out and discussed it. So what I'm going to tell you is some of the particulars in our opinion on these particular things that have changed, okay? And also at the end of this, once I go over this, I'll explain to you how changing this form is kind of a way of gun control, okay? And I'll explain to you how it's done. And it doesn't have anything to do with the purchaser. It pertains to the FFL dealer. Very curious. So stay tuned and let's start. We'll get into it. I'll get the camera around and we'll go over this, and I'll explain to you how it pertains to me and what does not pertain to me. Okay, here's the new form. And they did change it recently where the dealer fills out this upper part. And the way it used to be on the old form, you'd start at the top of the page here. But this is where you start, right here. Okay? And I'll show you the first change and a couple theories I have on it. Basically the same, with the exception of, you know, name, all this, and then this here, this section here. Alright, and what this asks is you fill out your name and address, and it says reside in city limits. Now the argument we had is, do we live in a city or do we live in a township? Okay, and it goes by population. I think the old fellow's wrong, they call it city now. So the population must have expanded. He's lived there most of his life. But anyway, it's strange. The way this is, I live, and my address is the city, but I actually live in another county. The way it geographically is laid out, where my development is just over the county line. And my house is actually in a very small section of the supposed geographic area of the city. But I'm in another county, so when I call the police or an ambulance and that, it's not the same. So that one there, I could safely say that I would put no, I don't live in the city limits. Now you're asking yourself, why are they asking that? Okay, the dealer said it's probably more just to confuse you. It's another thing that you can get wrong. It's another question you're not sure of. And if I put yes, that could be the wrong answer. No could be the wrong answer. At least you have unknown. Okay? So it's kind of like a question to throw you off, something to confuse you more. Because I really don't live in the city limits, whether it's a city, township, or whatever. I do live separately, so I can safely say no. Now, bear in mind why I'm bringing this up. If you get something wrong, an innocent mistake on this form, it could be an issue when you are edited or audited by the ATF. You know, Dale told me another one here. You can see it, weight, where it says weight, what's your weight? So me, it would be 220 pounds, but there was a thing, a guy went, say, 220, he said 2, forgot the 0. So when the ATF audited the dealer, they said, where do you get somebody that's 5'10" and weighs 20 pounds? That's a mistake. That goes against the FFL dealer, okay? And I'll discuss this at the end of the video once we review the form. But everything else is pretty much the same of, you know, that's the only addition here in this section, and the rest of it's all the same. And then when you, I have to add this in. I almost forgot about this city residence thing. My theory on it, you know, the dealer, he told me his theory. Mine is because in the state we live in, there are no local restrictions, at least not where I live. But I do remember in New York State at one time, about the same time they had that crime bill that banned assault rifles. Before that became a federal law, Albany, New York, which is the state capital, Albany, New York passed a city ordinance that said it is against a city ordinance. You cannot reside in the city limits of Albany and own an AR-15 or AK-47 or a high-capacity magazine or any of this long list of guns. Okay, that was enacted like in the early 90s, late 80s. And there are some local, it's not a state law, it's a local law, that a city ordinance states that it is against the law for you to own certain firearms. And I think that is what this is, okay? Now, if I was buying, let's per se, from what I understand, maybe this is not right, I don't know. But with that ordinance, and that's the only one I know of because I lived in New York State at the time they passed it. Say I went into a store and I was going to buy an AR-15 or an AK-47, and they asked where my address is. I could be in another part of the state, okay? I could be in another town or something else, okay? I can buy that firearm in the state, but I'm not in the city limits of Albany. And when they ask me, do you live in the city limits? And you check yes. If you do that, and if that city ordinance is in place, you just broke the law. Say you were in, you know, West Winfield or Syracuse and you bought the gun, but you live in Albany. If you check yes to this, this is an admission that you have broken a local ordinance. Not a federal law, not a state law, but this leaves a paper trail admitting that you have violated a local ordinance by buying such a firearm. I believe that is why that's on there in reality. It's another thing to leave a paper trail to catch you on one of these different technicalities. Okay. I know New York State has required that everyone register any AK-47s or AR-15s. That was years ago, okay? But there may be these weird local ordinances in place, and this can be another thing that will trip you up. You know, I forgot about that. My dealer, because in the state we live in, there's no, you know, at least not that we know of, or not locally or where we live, there are no local ordinances banning ownership of certain guns. But it can happen. And that's what I believe this here is another thing to trip you up. So make sure you're aware of your local ordinances, and even if you don't believe in them, okay, if you check you're in the city limits, and if you say no, yeah, or I don't know, it still doesn't matter. If there's a local ordinance, this may come back to haunt you. Okay, next we're going to come into the question and answer area. And we'll start with 21A, which is a standard question, and it's the one you answer yes to. But are you the actual transfer buyer of all the firearms on this and any continuation sheet? And then it has, starting here in bold letters, warning, you are not the actual transfer buyer if you are acquiring any of these firearms on behalf of another person. So they define it. You can't answer yes if you're buying this for another person. If you are not the actual buyer, transferee, the licensee or the dealer cannot transfer the firearm to you. Exception, which this wasn't on there. If you are only picking up a repaired firearm for another person, you are not required to answer 21A, and you may proceed to 21B. Okay. Some added stuff in there, kind of confusing. I've never went to a gunsmith to pick up somebody's gun, you know, whatever. Usually you have to pay the guy, so. Alright, now, B, which is here, and this is where stuff's, a lot of questions come up on it, and I'll give you my opinion on it. Do you intend to purchase or acquire any firearm listed on this form and any continuation sheet or ammunition? This is what's been added. Where is it? Okay. A lot of people, oh, what's this mean? This and that, all this other stuff. For sale or other disposition to any person described in question 21C, which is enough. See, this is where you got to read this for your answer. Or 21M, illegally in the United States. All right, so if you breeze through these up, M, or to a person described in 21NL who does not fall within the non-immigrant alien exception. So you, and why ammunition? Okay, again, this is a local state law that if you buy ammunition, you must buy it from a federal firearms dealer, and you must have a background check ran into you. This does not apply to everywhere. Like where we live, that's where my dealer said this is meaningless, crazy stuff. And he goes, you already know that you're not supposed to be buying a gun and giving it to someone who is an illegal immigrant or something else, or who is, you know, that you knowingly know they cannot buy a firearm. That's why when you sell your firearms, you should kind of have an idea who the hell you're selling them to, too. But, and the thing is, how are they going to catch you? So that's why ammunition is brought in there. Again, it's a local thing, much like the city limit deal. Okay, and some places do require. What places require it? Go to any online ammunition wholesaler and look up a list of where they will not ship stuff to. It's California, New York, some New Jersey, there's states with this. So this is why this is being added. Some places do require you to buy ammo and have a background check done. Now let's go to C. Do you intend to sell, otherwise dispose of any firearm or ammunition again in furtherance of any felony or other offense punishable by prison by a term of more than 1 year, a federal crime of terrorism or drug trafficking? So what this is asking you is, do you intend to buy a firearm or ammunition, you know, any firearm in this form or ammunition, and then they're asking you, see, it's not clear, in furtherance of any felony or other offense punishable by prison. Now, how do I know if somebody's got a record, you know, of a term more than 1 year or a federal crime of terrorism and drug trafficking offenses? So it's asking you here, do you intend to resell the guns or ammo to a known felon or a terrorist or drug dealer? Okay, so that's a little strange. No, I don't intend to do that. So that's a simple question. And then the rest of these, C, are you under indictment? These are the standard old questions. Are you under indictment for a felony? Have you ever been convicted of a felony, or a judge has imprisoned you for a year? Okay, so these are the standard old questions, no changes there. Let's go on to the next page. Okay, next question, 21F, are you fugitive from justice? Standard old-fashioned question. Now the next one, G, 21G, this is where it got reworded. Are you an unlawful user or addicted to marijuana, any depressant, stimulus, narcotic drug, or other controlled substance? Okay. Warning, the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law. Okay, which this is. If a state says it's legal, medicinal purposes, under federal law, regardless of whether it has been legalized or decriminalized for medical or recreation purposes in the state where you live. So if you check no to that, but yet you go buy recreational marijuana or have it on you in possession of the said firearm, are you committing a federal crime? Okay, the way this was worded. So this is another form of entrapment or weird shit. I don't use medical marijuana. I don't live in a state where it's legalized. So I answer this like the normal question, are you addicted to any narcotics? And I would check no. Okay. But see, this is where they're opening the door, the way they reworded this, that depending on that, the way this is worded, even though it's legal in your state, you're still gonna, it's still against federal law, a felony. Remember, anything that you lie on this form is a felony, and we'll get to that where it tells you this. Okay, next one, H, are you mentally ill? It's a standard question. Next one, I, dishonorably discharged from the armed forces. And then J, the standard, you know, harassment or attacking your stalking and all that other fun stuff. And have you ever convicted of domestic violence? That's the one there that you cannot ever own a gun again. But those are all standard. I think these questions had not been modified on this form. Have you ever denounced your citizenship, where you would have to either apply for citizenship in a foreign country or join the French Foreign Legion? They give you the option to do that. And then, are you illegally or unlawfully in the United States? Okay, didn't change much. Now we come to where my buddy the dealer said, this is confusing and this is misleading to where you will make a mistake. Remember, I'm going to tell you why making a mistake on this form is key and why it really doesn't come back to you, it comes back to the dealer. And there's a point here. 21N1 and 21N2. Standard form was, okay, on the old form, you read the first one. Are you an alien who has been admitted to the United States under a non-immigrant visa? And you would check no. And then you would skip the last question because, you know, it's asking about your status, isn't it? If you are such an alien, do you fall within any exceptions stated in the U.S. instructions? Now that hasn't changed, but now here, this little section here, in the parentheses here, this states, U.S. citizens, nationals leave 21N1 and 21N2 blank. This is what opens the door. You have to read both questions and this addendum here. And then you leave both of these blank because I'm a U.S. citizen. I have nothing to do with immigration's visa, alien, legal alien, illegal alien, whatever. Now you leave both of them blank. If you read this and think it's the question on the old form, you would check no here. And now you've made, no here. Now you've made a mistake. You have made a mistake in this paperwork because you did not read the complete last line, which this is normal, this little addition here. U.S. citizens, nationals leave these blank. So my dealer instructed me, you know, it's like something designed to trip you up. Okay, this little thing that you have to read the complete questions. I strongly suggest that you read all of these things before you fill them out, because I also believe that the dealer cannot tell you how to answer this. Okay, so if you got a question, the dealer cannot instruct you on how to fill out this form. Okay, so this is where we get this tricky area. Now, oh, sorry about that. We'll look at this wonderful, before you sign on the dotted line, this wonderful paragraph. I certify that my answers in section B are correct and complete. I have read and understand notices, instructions, definitions of the ATM, the ATF form. I understand answering yes to question 21A if I am not the transfee buyer is a crime punishable as a felony under federal law and also might violate state or local laws. I understand that the person who answered yes to any of the questions 21B through 21M is prohibited from receiving or purchasing a firearm. So if you check yes to any of this, they're not supposed to let you have the gun, background check or not. I understand that person's answer yes to 21N1 is prohibited, okay, from receiving a firearm, meaning are you illegal immigrant, unless the person answers yes to question 21N2 and provides documentation required in 26D, which is exemption to non-immigrants, some kind of immigrants form. I also understand that making any false, oral, or written, so I don't understand oral. This is a written document. I don't know why oral statements. Or exhibiting any false, misrepresented identification. Alright? don't use a fake ID to buy a gun. That's pretty understandable. Where respect to this transaction is a crime punishable as a felony under federal law and also might violate state and local laws. I further understand, and this is this last part here, from here to here, this last sentence right here, okay, this whole thing here. I further, and this is added, I further understand that the repetitive purchase of firearms for the purchose of resale to predominantly earn a profit without a federal firearms license is in violation of federal law. So basically what they're telling you is you can't buy a gun and then go out and sell the gun, okay, for profit as a business. All right, so this thing here, you know, I'm a collector. I buy guns, I sell them. You know, I have for years, all right? So I don't understand the meaning of this for the purpose of resale to earn a profit. Okay, that's kind of hard to define. You know, once I own the gun and I have it, say I keep it 2-3 years, I want to sell it, whether I make a profit or a loss on it, you know, I guess it's a gun running thing. If you're just buying a whole bunch of guns and driving to another state to resell them, it's a felony. But, okay, that's another thing. You know, so if I go and sell the gun I bought, am I violating the law and a crime? All right, so I don't know. These are the little tricky things in it. And the only other thing, again, don't pertain to me, but the only other major change we'll go over here is if you're under 21 deal. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but here it is on the form. And what this is it is 27A, which you'll find on the form here, and the dealer fills this out. It comes into your background checks, because most of the rest of this form is your background check or whatever and all this, and this is what the dealer fills out. But what is different is if the transferee buyer is under 21, a waiting period of up to 10 days may apply where notification from NICS, the background check people, is received within 3 business days to further investigate a possible disqualifying juvenile record. A NICS check is only valid for 30 calendar days after the date recorded in question 27A. So now, if you're under 21, they can hold you up. It used to be 3 days. If they did a background check and called in on you and they didn't get any response in 3 days, you come back in 3 days and get the gun. Okay? But now they're saying if they need more time, a waiting period of up to 10 days. So now if they don't come back or say we have to check, they can make you wait, if you're under 21, 10 days before you can pick up a firearm and have a valid background check. Kind of discriminatory, but that's the way it is. So, I'll give you my conclusions on this, and I hope this helps you out and answers some questions. Alright, so we went over the form, and let's cover first how it affects you as the individual buying the gun. Okay? What it does here is it's confusing. These questions and how they worded it can be confusing. Okay? Most of it does not pertain to someone like me. Why? Because there are no restrictions in the city or township thing, okay, of buying a firearm. I don't live in an area where marijuana is legalized, okay? I don't intend to buy anything and sell it to a felon. So a lot of this stuff is kind of pointless, okay, to me, the individual. The only thing is the clause of if you are buying a firearm for the purpose, which I don't. I buy these guns, I test them, I keep them. Yes, I eventually do sell them. So, you know, I'm not going and buying a dozen brand new pistols and then taking them somewhere to a gun show or when the shortage comes up and reselling them for a profit, be it a legal transaction or not. This is kind of what they're looking for, is people doing this, because like in my state, you really, the law states if I sell a handgun to somebody, they got to show me a concealed carry permit or give me a pistol purchasing permit, which is a background check to buy a firearm they get by paying $5 to the local sheriff. He runs a background check and issues you a document, and then that way when you walk in to buy a handgun in my state, which is North Carolina, you have to have one of two things. Either that sheriff issued document or a concealed carry permit, okay, to buy a handgun, period. That's it. All right, so that would be where I would be breaking the state law by selling a handgun to someone who does not have the proper credentials or a background check of some sort. A shotgun or a rifle, doesn't matter. See now, say AR-15s. Say I go to gun show. I think this form now it only has for 3. The old ones used to have space for 6. You could buy 6 firearms, like rifles, shotguns, and have a space listed on the old form. They changed that. It's only 3. But say I bought 3 AR-15 rifles at a gun show, brand new. Pack them up. Or a dealer. I've seen guys go into a store and buy them when they thought they're going to pass the law, and then they're going to go from $500 or $600 up to $1,000. And now you got these guns. That's what I think it's kind of limiting. People do it, but how do you prove that's what they're doing? Okay. Now, where this is a form of gun control. Oh yeah, and the age thing, I'm well over the age of 21, so that doesn't bother me. And I can pass any background check required. So, all right. Where, like I stated, this is a form of gun control, is there has been rumor that the ATF has been told to go and shut down and revoke the licenses of most of these small-time dealers. Now, like I said in my video where I went and purchased a firearm from Sportsman's Warehouse or any other major retailer, when you fill this form out electronically or whatever and they print it out, it's checked by the clerk, he checks it, it's checked by a senior clerk, and then a manager, store manager, reviews all the paperwork. Now, you're asking, why do they do that? Now, remember the section where I said the weight, the guy put 22 instead of 220? All right. When you get audited by the ATF, like my friend does, he told me that's a mistake. The FFL dealer is responsible for reviewing this form and double checking and making sure all the information is correct. In other words, the address and stuff I put on here should match my driver's license and my ID and all that other stuff. And my concealed carry permit should have the same address on there. If it doesn't, can't sell them a gun. Your ID's no good. This comes back on the dealer, like he said, the mistake, 222 instead of 220 pounds. Guy got gigged by an ATF audit. Now, every mistake on the paper, now, did the ATF or the police go look for the guy that put 22 pounds on there and said, you know, you committed a felony by putting improper information on here? No. What they do is that is a strike against the FFL dealer for having incorrect records. And after he accumulates so many issues, they will pull his license. Okay? They will pull his license, and that's what my friend said. They're making this so confusing that there is going to be mistakes or misunderstandings, and if they pick through this or prove any of this is false, number one, to you, the probability of making a mistake on this form as the person buying and having law enforcement come to you depends solely on where you live, and chances are will be very small. So this panicking, or what does it mean to you, this and that, nothing. But what happens is making this form confusing and difficult. If there is a mistake on there, this goes against the dealer. And if enough mistakes are made, they can revoke his license. This has happened in the past where they targeted a very large gun dealer out west somewhere. And this company's been in business, they were big, they sold a lot of guns. And this is long before, this is going back 5, 6 or more years. Okay, I think it was in a National Rifleman or something magazine. They just wanted to shut this person down. And they just went and found all these mistakes on his forms. And eventually, when they found so many mistakes over a period of time, they kept checking them, because once they find one mistake, they can come back shortly after and want to check your records again. They got him for improper record keeping, and they revoked his license. So how this helps as a form of gun control is it's not so much if you make a mistake or answer this wrong, but it is written in here when you sign this in that paragraph here, that if you put a false answer or a wrong answer, is wrong answer a false answer? I don't know. It's a felony. So now if they really want to pursue it or really want to get on your ass, any mistakes you make can be seen as a felony, but that's going to be a long shot. You have to really piss somebody off. But what happens is all the mistakes made tally up to where they're going to shut down a lot of small local dealers, and these are mostly the guys that get you the stuff online. You know, like the guy I do business with. Anytime I see something online I want to buy it, you know, he's right in there. When I go to the checkout, it says this item needs a FFL dealer, and his name's there. I just click on it, they send it to him, he gives me a call, and we go fill the forms out. Everything's great. They want to put people like him out of business by limiting the number of dealers, licensed, federally licensed dealers. This is a form of gun control. And if they're just doing these subtle changes, they didn't change the law, they just changed this wacky ass form to where it's pretty easy to get confused and put the wrong answers down. And who's going to be the one to pay for it is not so much you, the consumer, but the dealer trying to keep up with this. And if this guy doesn't understand what he's doing or keeping records, he's going to get his license yanked. And that's going to be one less dealer. So this is how this is sort of this bizarre form of gun control. Okay? And it's really not targeted at you, the consumer. That's too far of a reach. It's more to hassle the FFL dealer, like with the ghost guns and putting the serial numbers on. All of that comes on to the federally licensed dealer, okay, is the one that has to deal with this and correct this. Or he loses his license, okay? And one way of controlling guns is to limit the places you can go buy them. So, yeah, that's what I believe all this is. Not so much you, the buyer, but to, you know, give the dealers a hard time and make it more difficult for them. So they put them out of business or become such a hassle that a lot of people doing it part-time, or these small dealers that do stuff are just going to say, hey, you know what, it ain't worth the time and trouble. I ain't going to renew my license. I'm going to get out of this. So that's what's going on in reality. And I have filled out the form. So this is not my wild assumptions or something. Yeah, well, most of it is my opinion and the guy that I did business with, his opinion. But that's my take on what's going on here with this change in the forms. It's all in this very backdoor, very subtle, just making things more confusing, difficult, adding more restrictions, rules, regulations that you don't even know you're breaking, okay? And it's an ongoing campaign by this current administration to do that, to thwart our ability to own firearms. All right, so thank you. And if you can, check me out on Rumble and Odyssey. I'm running a ton of videos on both channels. Okay, guys? So check it out.